Welcome to the Plato Paradigm, a paradigm shift in reading Plato's dialogues. Episode 148, Meno 98c to D. Socrates and Meno now seem to be quite happy that orthe doxa, correct opinion, and episteme, understanding or knowledge, are both as good as each other when it comes to the results. We have seen that there is no reason to believe that an opinion is correct unless you already have the result, in which case you already know what led to the result, which would mean that you don't have doxa, you have episteme. At least this is true when it comes to something like Larissa, the location of Larissa. If you know that the opinion is correct because you have arrived at Larissa, you know how you arrived at Larissa. Surprisingly, Socrates still has more to say. Uden ara orthe doxa epistemes cheron ude heton of felime estai, estas praxes, ude haner ho echon orthen doxan ei ho epistemen. Estit auta. So correct opinion is no worse than understanding, nor less beneficial will it be to deeds, nor will the man having correct opinion, will he be no worse or less beneficial than one having understanding. This is the case. So now Socrates is sliding from the concepts themselves of correct opinion and understanding to the men having correct opinion and understanding. Meno seems already to accept that both men are equally beneficial. The man having understanding is no better than the man having correct opinion. Kaimen hogagathos aner ophelimos himin homologe taienai. Nay. And indeed the good man has been agreed by us to be beneficial. Yes. Socrates has already suggested that correct opinion is no less beneficial than understanding, so it seems to follow that a man having correct opinion will be no less beneficial than a man having understanding. We should appreciate, however, that the beneficial man is limited to the sphere of practical behavior, while a good man is not necessarily restricted to benefiting people. He can look good, he can be from a good family, he could be a good talker, a good entertainer, but not particularly beneficial. So Socrates has deliberately restricted this notion of a good person to one who is beneficial only. Again, he has already done this with the correct opinion and understanding. They too are only beneficial now. They cannot be good in any other way. In the next thing that Socrates says, there is a problem in the text. I'm not going to try to amend the text. I'm not going to try to explain the problem at all. There are just two words involved, and I'm simply going to omit them. What is left is perfectly intelligible. Epede toinon monon di epistemen agathoi andres an eien, kai ophelimoi tais polisin, eper eien, ala kai di orthen doxan, tutoin deudeteron physse estintois anthropois, ut episteme, ute doxa lethes. Et okeis soi, physse hopoteron un autoin enai? Uc emoige. Since then, not only through understanding would good men be also beneficial to the city-states, if indeed they would be, but also through correct opinion, but neither of these comes to men through nature, neither understanding nor true opinion. Or does it seem to you that either of them does come by nature? It doesn't seem to me. We may recollect that coming to people by nature was one of the options Meno offered Socrates at the beginning of the dialogue with regard to arete itself. Is arete something teachable or exercisable, or something which comes by nature to people, or in some other way? Those are the four options. When Meno brought the conversation back to these options, Socrates quickly disposed of all the options apart from teachability, which then became the basis for the hypothesis. If virtue is teachable, then what must it be? And the answer was it must be episteme. Before this, Socrates had refuted the notion that people could be naturally good by pointing out that if that were so, some people would be able to identify such children with arete and lock them up in a tower until they became older and therefore more useful. The fact that babies and children are not locked up in towers for this very reason is sufficient evidence, apparently, for Meno to show that virtue doesn't come to people naturally, but it hadn't shown before the hypothesis about the teachability of arete that episteme doesn't come to people naturally. Quite apart from correct opinion, we haven't said at all where they come from. Meno also seems to have forgotten about the theory of recollection, where all of episteme, the various episteme of all sorts of things, already reside in the soul. They didn't arrive there naturally in this life, but in this life they are naturally there. They came to the soul in its many travels between its many reincarnations, and it had seen everything in this world and in Hades. According to the theory of recollection, we have only to look inside into our soul to remember things, because all of the memories are there, all the episteme we need is in the soul already. And obviously Meno has forgotten all of this. I say he's forgotten it, but if Socrates reminded him, he would immediately recall all of the theory. It's simply that Meno never knows when to recall what, and to compare it with what. The ability to know what to recall and what to compare is part of dialectic, and Meno does not have dialectic. That's a very important feature of his character. Uk un epede u fuse, u dehoi agathoi fuse eien an, u data. So since they are not by nature, nor would the good be by nature. No, not at all. It doesn't actually follow that if episteme and orthe doxa are not things that come naturally to humans, it doesn't follow that humans are not naturally good. To conclude that is to assume that the only way that people are good is by episteme and orthe doxa. The current assumptions are that episteme and orthe doxa are equally beneficial, but that does not mean that humans can be only good in this way. They may be beneficial in this way, which means that they are practically good, but they could be good in other ways as well. The babies and children locked up in the tower were supposed to be beneficial, not simply good. At least now we can see that this argument deals with doxa and episteme coming to people by nature. And this indicates that the problematic piece of text which I mentioned but I didn't explain is completely out of place here. Socrates is saying that episteme and true doxa are not things that come to people by nature. And then there's this strange addition, ut epicteta, nor are they things which are acquirable. And then he returns to asking about nature. There is no discussion here in general about things being acquirable or not. This is simply about how something can be acquired. This in fact goes back to Meno's original question. If virtue is something teachable or exercisable or comes to people by nature or in some other way, in a way Meno is asking how we acquire virtue. But he doesn't actually ask how do we acquire virtue. But that is basically what he's saying, and this is how many people have understood his question in the past, as if Meno himself is eager to acquire virtue, which we know he isn't. Meno is eager to find out which opinion Socrates holds, which opinion seems to Socrates to be true. And Meno himself seems to be quite happy to hold a collection of contradictory, true opinions about every subject, which he has catalogued by the people who hold those various true opinions. Epede degeu fusse, escopumen to metatuto e didactonestin. Nay. So since not by nature, we then looked after this whether it was something teachable. Yes. So now it looks as though Socrates is going back to that point where Meno has given up answering the question, what is arete, and wanted Socrates to reply to his original question, what sort of thing is arete? Is it teachable, exercisable, so on? But if this is the case, it wasn't true that at the time they were talking about doxa and episteme in relation to coming to people naturally. They were talking about arete, coming to people naturally. Socrates has also made it very clear that he's making a mess of the entire reconstruction of the conversation, and he may have been hoping for a more intelligent reaction from Meno, like, what are you saying? We never said that.